Hello there! This video is to go over the game modes and the team composition rules for Lochaven's Capture the Flag Invitational for 2025. In this video, I'm going to be going over the event. I'm the Warcrat for this event. I'm really excited. So what I'm going to do is walk you through why I made different decisions, how I arrived at that part of game design, and maybe you can learn something about game design, or if you're one of my players, you can learn about the upcoming Battle Gaming Tournament. I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a Battle Master, always a wizard, and I'm super duper excited to talk to you about CTFI. So, here is the game rules document. I'm just going to tell you about all the different things. So the most important thing to know is that the game mode is Capture the Flag. So if we scroll down here and look at the field description, you can see that there is a very small play area, right? Each of these rings is about 40 feet, and the lane here is 25 feet across by 100 feet long. The flag is stored in the middle of both of those sections, and there is a respawn on either side. Okay? So with that in mind, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the rules and break them down. So I did a bunch of different things while I was designing this game, and I wanted to create a very fast-paced game that wasn't going to take a long time to get done. So the first thing I determined was it was going to be best 3 out of 5. So that means that each match will be a maximum of 5 rounds of combat. That is not a ton of combat. That hopefully won't take too terribly long. I also scheduled that in such a way that if the game is not over after 15 minutes, then the team that has the most points is the winner, right? So, in aid to making sure that this battle game tournament gets done on time and runs through everything, I've created a couple of important rules. So the first and most important rule is that there is no respawn clock. When you die, the only way you're coming back is if you get resurrected or if you wait until the next round. Now, every time a point is scored by getting the flag from the enemy base and bringing it back to your base, that causes a reset of the game where everyone who was dead is alive and then everyone goes back to their bases and the flags are reset. So there is no getting resurrected by just waiting it out. That way, if a player goes down, they have to, you have to plan on having someone resurrect you, or you have to have the rest of your team be good enough to win without you. There are also a couple of magic alterations I threw in there. I said that spell balls are only going to last for 30 seconds. This is because it's a very, very fast-paced game, and if you get hit with a lightning bolt or something, that shouldn't last more than the anticipated round is going to last. I don't need every spell ball to be a kill ball. So 30 seconds for all spell balls. And then I made one big change that stepped on a bunch of toes. I said that Frozen is only going to last for 10 seconds. And the reason I did this was because I want players to be interesting and have to make choices. And so if offensive Frozen, so anything like Icy Blast and Ice Ball and things like that, only lasts for 10 seconds, you can't goof around with Frozen. You have to make maximum use of it. Since Frozen is objectively the best state to put a player in, it is useful and interesting to reduce that Frozen timer so that they have to choose between a state that will last 3 times as long but isn't as strong, or are they going to go for the strongest state with the smallest timer? So I already mentioned about how you score points, but there's another thing I want to clarify. You can't move your own flag. So if the enemy team gets your flag and takes it halfway down the field and then dies, well, your flag stays at that halfway point until the reset. So their team will have an easier time trying to pick up that flag if their assassin blinked over and manages to get that flag part of the way there. Well, that is going to be a problem for you because you're not allowed to touch your own flag. Now, you do not need your flag to score a point. You only need their flag at your flag pole, and then you immediately score a point. Okay? If, for some reason, a player steps out of bounds, they are out of game. If a player steps through this line on either side, they are out of game, and they must return to their base to come back into the game. Now, if a player gets shoved or thrown or has forced movement, they cannot be forced outside of the game. So they will move back towards their base if they experience forced movement that would require them to move away from a caster, even if that would normally move them out through a wall. Now, if a player wants to, they can purposefully step out under forced movement, become out of game, and return to their base immediately, where then they can come out of that out of game state by using the I return to the physical world, I return to the physical world incantation, and then they're back in. Insubstantial players can move outside of the lanes. Now, this is interesting because if something makes them not insubstantial anymore while they're outside the lane, they have to return to their base, and they've been out of game. Now, if something kills them, and I believe the only thing that can kill them while they're insubstantial outside of the area is to hit them with a Dimensional Rift. And if someone uses Dimensional Rift during the game and kills an insubstantial player out here, they immediately move 1 foot off the line, where they can then be summoned corpsed and brought back. But they don't need to be out and about way over here, right? I think it'd be suboptimal to have your assassin blink their way all the way out into the middle of nowhere. So, I already told you about how the lanes are going to be constructed. Let's talk about the team composition. So the team is going to consist of exactly 6 players. You're going to have 4 marshals, a ranged fighter, and a caster. Now, for your caster, there are some special rules here. Obviously, you can choose any of the 4 casting classes, but you may only have 1 archetype. If you want 2 archetypes, that's a bummer because you can only have 1. Spell lists are locked at the beginning of the tournament. If you are thinking like, gee, I don't know which spell list I want to run, you need to figure that out, because once I check your spell list, that spell list is locked and you may not change it. If a druid wants to use a bow, then the ranged fighter cannot use a bow. We'll talk about that ranged fighter now. A ranged fighter, this player must choose assassin, archer, or scout, and they may only use a bow, a dagger, or throwies. So a bow, throwies, and a dagger. And each team may only have a maximum of 1 bow. So even if another class would be allowed to use bows, then only 1 bow is allowed on the field. So your ranged fighter doesn't have to be your bow guy if your druid wants to use a bow, for example, but your ranged person is limited to bow, throwies, and a dagger, and only 1 bow is allowed on the field. Now, your 4 marshals cannot have any repeats. So you can't have 2 paladins or 2 warriors. You have to have 1 of each thing. And then they also cannot use the same weapon set as any other marshal. So you can only have 1 sword and board, 1 flow, 1 pole guy, 1 double flail if you want. There's almost an infinite combination of possible weapons that you can have. You just can't repeat any of them in your squadron. So yeah, I think this is going to be a super fun tournament. I can't wait to see what people come up with and what wacky shenanigans happen. I will try to get a post to follow up to this video when the CTFI is done, maybe include some game footage. I think it's going to be a great game. So yeah, that's all of the Capture the Flag rules. Thank you for watching this video. I can't wait to see you next week.